Hi, y'all. I love you. Just wanted to start it out on that foot. Today's a really important, I love you too, I do. I hear you wagging. Today is such an important day energetically. It really is. And I realized after my talk yesterday, after yesterday's live stream, I realized that it was not complete and I had a couple of other things to do. Please walk, hello dear. Please walk away. Yesterday, my bedroom door came off the hinges. So usually for my live streams, my bedroom door is closed and the dogs are inside. And now I have no place to put them. So they're going to kind of be present. That's why when you hear the clicking, it's all the toenails. Because we have to clip their nails. Go lie down, please. Today that's not lying down, that's being in my lap. There needs to be like 2 feet of space between us for like just a little bit. Today, my guest is my lizard, Carmen. I always try to share my screen with animals and other elements. I was thinking, I know that I've had a problem with the lighting, and somebody suggested correctly that it would be better if I was naturally lit, so I could just turn this whole thing around and be lit myself. But the reason I'm doing it this way, I was thinking about it. In part, it's because I still prefer anonymity, I think, and I prefer that my viewers look at the light and I'm kind of in shadow. I realized that, like, that didn't pass by my awareness. I am going to take steps to fix it, but the reason I wanted to, I'm finicky about what's in the background because I'll show you what's in the background. I want to make sure that everything that is transmitted to you be in a harmonic that contains a lot of things. So if you're just looking at me, you're just kind of getting my energy, but what I really want to send forward is a wide array of, you know, I've got crystals and plants and animals, and this represents the triad. That's me with the salt lamp, kind of purifies everything. And it's the larger of the 2 panel, but I'm flanked by 2 other beings, as I said. I've got the amethyst. I've got, I think this is apophyllite. Anyway, there's a wide array of other beings. I don't want to show up because the energy that we're all commencing forward, we're gathering in an energy that must be a multiplicity. It must contain a wide array, and we need to go forward on a platform of inclusion. Inclusion and wide variety of offerings. Everything you're opening to receive when you're receiving this transmission, it's not just mine, it's also a gift. You're receiving, as we connect, you're receiving the energy of all others in the group. So I ask you to just stretch out now with kind of welcoming antenna. Today is a really important transmission. This day, I knew that there was going to be a tipping point, but you remember how I said that my live streams are all sequential and we're building something? And we are. But it's about releasing the old, but it's also, there's a reconnection and also a disconnection. It's happening simultaneously. So this is so interesting to me that sometimes when I look back, I loaded my last night's live stream onto YouTube this morning, and I realized that it was number 9. So it's a completion. And then today, but here's the thing too, I realized that last night was the completion of a certain portion of it. There was a portion of disclosure last night that revealed certain things that have not yet been revealed. So remember I said that everything that happens on my live stream means something. I mean, not even just my live stream, everything that happens all together means something, always. It's just a matter, sometimes you're not aware of it. And so you don't get the meaning, you miss all of it. But as we reconnect, my speech is going to stop becoming disjointed, and it's going to become much more fluid. The breaks in my speech pattern, the breaks in the topic, the way that I speak, that's evidence of the amount of disconnect that has been there in the communication stream. Do you remember at the very beginning, my very first time doing anything myself with, it was like I think it was a 3-minute video, still on YouTube. I cried through the whole thing, and I was getting pinched around the neck. And it was because other beings really didn't want me to speak. It was partially not just other beings, it was my own fear. I really didn't want to do it. But then it automatically cut off. After 3 minutes, it broke. And since then, if you were to watch all of my live streams sequentially through the eyes of symbolism and paying attention to the way my speech is broken up or connected, it's pertinent. It means something. So last night was the 9th live stream, and certain things were revealed. One of the interesting things is that Kenji, my snake, started out around my neck, and then he went behind me, and he wrapped himself around the chair. He stuck around. He didn't leave entirely. He stuck around until about halfway through the live stream, and then he left, and he went up the coat rack by the door. He was poised by the door, pointing up. He curled himself around the coat rack, and he allowed me to pick him up very easily. Sometimes it's hard to pick him up. He gets stuck. He doesn't want to come, and he braces himself, and sometimes it can really take a while to dislodge him. But yesterday, he allowed me to pick him up. But the point being, he was coiled around my neck, but then he released his grip on my neck. I kept talking, and he went up. Hang on a second. Speaking of disconnection, whoop. Speaking of disconnection, my computer is unplugged. 1 second. Okay, I think we're set. Yes. So the other thing that happened in the live stream last night was that at one point I turned around and I said, hang on a second, I lost my snake. And I moved this red chair. And underneath was Carmen, my lizard. That is significant. Something was revealed last night. If you look at through the eyes of symbolism, every force evolves a form. A red chair symbolizes kind of the seat of physical security. It's physical stability because it's red, right? And you start from, in the chakra system, red is the root. So it represents physical stability, physical safety. And underneath this, this is where Carmen was hiding. She was sleeping. And last night I moved the chair. When I was looking for Kenji, I moved and I discovered her right there. That's important. There was I'm not entirely sure what it is yet. I haven't talked to Josh or Carmen in years. There was a break. There was a disconnection. Nobody told me why, really, but I know that there was a lot of gossip. Lot of stuff happened. There was a lot of gossip is not the right word. When dark forces try to take you down, if they can't reach you, they will go to other members of the group and they will put things in your head like they will try to control the way you're perceived. They will try to get you to self-imprison. They will make you very untrusting. They will make you barricade yourself because you view somebody as a threat when they're not really. Or they'll use any number of kinds of tactics. At any rate, so yesterday we were talking about, actually, let me do this. This is a specific group that I'm talking to now. And I want to talk very much about shared victory. We're doing something on this planet that is unprecedented in all galaxies, in all multiverses. It's unprecedented. I want to talk about, I'm not going to look at the screens for a while because I want to see if I can get this out without distraction. I want to talk about the merging of polarities and sharing victory. There's a shared victory that comes from cooperation. My group that I'm taking, you know, we're going up in waves. We're ascending the planet in waves. The first group to go is the one the ones who have been on the edge, who have had the crap beaten out of them, man. They have had the crap beaten out of them. I want you to know that this wave, we're doing a wait, what's the word? Everything that's happening now has a precedent in the Joan of Arc lifetime. If you look back at that story, it was very short. It was only about 2 years, roughly 2 years. Are you coming up? Really? You're coming in the chair too? Okay. Okay, fine. Sit down. Don't bother Carmen. Sit down. These two love each other. They really do. Would you lie down, please? Okay. Lie down. Leave Carmen alone. Oh, hey, stop. Go lie down. Lie down. What are you doing? Do I have to turn you around? Okay. Nah, don't harm Carmen. Here. Here. Just a second. Just a second. We'll manage all of our animals. We'll manage you all. Yes, you're going to share the screen with me today. How nice. Go lie down. Here, you go up. Okay, this lizard's stuck. Are you leaving? What are you doing? All right, whatever. Okay, thank you. Yes, we've got other dogs here too. I was in the middle of a sentence. Hi. Okay, thank you. Came to offer. Thank you. Whoops. Just a sec. Hang on. Hold. Bear with me. Bear with me. Can you sit here and you lie down? Okay. Good. Everybody's set. And here's Luke. Okay. Are we set? We're set. Okay, please lie down. Hi, Lucas. I wish there was a way to get Luke on camera too. Luke's a good boy. Yes. Where was I? Shared victory. So isn't that funny that we're talking about shared victory, and my emotional support dog is right here. Thank you so much. No, leave the foot down because Carmen's right there. I don't want you to scratch yourself. I know. Go snuggle with Carmen. There you go. That's perfect. Got the face. Well, let's see. Okay, listen up. Shared victory. There is a particular strength. This is the thing that I really want to communicate today. Because we have reached a tipping point. Remember, we were talking about a tipping point where the tension builds, and because it builds, there's a break, and it's like a collective tower moment. The break that we've experienced, that we are experiencing, and it's like we're right in the middle of a tower moment. There's a death and a new beginning. We're right at like the death card. It's a death and a new beginning simultaneously. It's the turning of the wheel. Flip. It's going to be a quick flip. There is a massive gift in being stripped down to absolutely nothing. I remember one time somebody asked me, who the hell was it? We were talking about armies and we were talking about armies and resource distribution. And somebody was making the point that you want your army to be, thanks, please leave, stop, don't crowd Carmen out, please. If she bites you, it's your own fault. I know you love her. I love both of you. Oh gosh. I was having a conversation with someone about armies and resource distribution, and someone had said, which one will win? Like, you would think that naturally it's the army that has everything, has the stuff. Is like they show up with tanks and armor, and they show up prepared with stuff, and they're fortified and fed. And you would think that they would automatically win. That's not necessarily the case. Somebody had asked me, well, who would win? And obviously you want to go forward with an army that has everything, but my answer had said, the side that will win is whichever one I'm in charge of, whichever one I'm leading. And it sounds really cocky, and it is, but it's also partially true, because you're gonna use different tactics. There's a different kind of strength. There's a different kind of strength that comes from having nothing else to lose. When you show up and you have lost fucking everything, absolutely everything. You show up, you're toothless, you got half a broken spoon. But when you have lost everything and your back is against the wall and there is everything at stake, you tell me that that's not more potent. It is. It's going to be it's a match. It's an equal match. A well-fed, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be well-fed. Everyone should be well-fed. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be well provided for, have all the stuff you need. You should. But there's also a complacency that comes with comfort and reliance in anything external. And that can really be a weakness. If you are somebody who has habitually, or especially a population, if you have a population who has habitually, let's say for a lifetime, always had everything handed to them, they tend to get real bloated. They're like, they're like popped ticks. You can just you can pop them because they're just full of themselves. They're usually, there's a certain kind of complacency that comes with comfort. They haven't had to really fight for everything. They tend to have, they're somewhat weak at the core, somewhat. I was talking with a guy I met in passing, Trey. He's a convict. I don't know what he went to prison for, but he's released now. But I gave him a ride to work one day, and he had a horrible job, horrible, horrible, horrible job. But he didn't even have a ride there. He's getting minimum wage. He's shoveling shit at Hits Horse Show. And he had to pay money for a bus because he doesn't have a car, doesn't know how to drive, grew up in a foster care system, was born to a drug addicted family. He bounced around through the foster care system. This guy, I talked to him, and then he went to prison. And then he said there was actually the experience of having grown up in the foster care system that prepared him, that he knew what to do when he got to prison. He knew how to survive in prison, having grown up in the foster care system, and other people who were suddenly found themselves in prison, having always had anything handed to them, fell apart, and they fell apart. At any rate, there's a certain kind of education, certain skill set that nobody wants. You don't want to develop it. And nobody wants it, but once you have it, you have it. And the population that I've been in my jurisdiction, if you've watched my other live streams, it's not just children, you know, happy, merry Disney. That's a portion of it. That's what you need to hold on to get out. But the other is very much Cinderella. It's like you're locked in a tower, you're doing all of the work. All of the work. The people that have been unheard, who have been ignored by society, who haven't had any of the advantages. They haven't had it, or they had it and they lost it. There's also this thing where we're just not going to let you in. Nobody's going to talk to you. We're ignoring you. You can go live behind the dumpster. I had somebody tell me when I lost everything and my children were being taken away from me and I was living alone in this apartment, had lost all my family members. I told somebody, I had somebody tell me that I should go to Goodwill. And this is somebody who actually had an extra car to spare, I might add. Somebody told me that I should go to Goodwill and get myself a used bicycle because that would make me feel empowered. That's not true. I didn't actually feel empowered by that at all. I felt very much like a piece of garbage. And that's how the way that this person thought of me. I want to talk about a sense of entitlement. I have also been accused of having a sense of entitlement. And I can tell you that for my population, what my population needs is very much more a sense of entitlement. They've been the ones that have been doing the vast majority of the effort, and they're the ones that were never paid. They were never paid a fair wage. They were never given equality. Their voices were never heard. And then we're told that a sense of entitlement is wrong. I call bullshit on that. They need much more of it, actually. It's like everything else. You can have a sense of entitlement that says, why should I give you anything? But my people also they should have a greater sense of entitlement that says we are entitled to justice. Reparations do need to be made. And also, as a planet, we're not going to get out until there is equality achieved. But here's what's going to happen. So we're reaching the today is important because it is simultaneously the number 9 live stream, and it's all. So I labeled it part 2 of the number 9 because it's the completion, but it's also a new beginning. I'm taking my population. I'm not saying I'm taking, it's not, because it's collective victory. Collective victory. There is a group who has put forth, who has done all the work while everyone else was sleeping or very comfortable or comfortably ignoring. No, the second wave was in contact with the first wave, but chose to ignore it over and over and over. And we've begged and we've knocked on the door and we've received nothing. We've received no answer. And so today is a major pivot point. I'm just very aware of it energetically. We are entitled to that which is ours, which we made. I had a dream. If you go back to my blog, the AscensionArc.blog, I wrote about a while ago about a dream that I had. I won't go over the whole dream, but it started out an extreme incline and in New York City. And in the center of the street, I was going up the hill on roller skates, and I wasn't getting any traction. I just kept working and working and working and working, and I kept sliding back down no matter what I did. And finally, I reached the center point, which was a delicatessen owned by men, 4 men. And there was a chessboard floor, you know, like those checkerboard floors. And I finally walked in, and even the floor of the deli was on a slant. Like when you walked in, it wasn't straight; it was on a slant. And so I still had to go in the center. There was a man in the center who was really stupid. Stupid because of density, not unintelligent, but one of those things, asleep to the world. And I had to point. He was chopping lettuce. He was cutting up iceberg lettuce. That's an important symbolism. In terms of symbolism, I won't get into all of it, but it was about reaching equality. It took me a very long time to reach the center, and then I had to kind of wake him up and point to the clock. I pointed all around him, all of these signs, where it's like, you haven't been paying attention to all of these signs, all this information, where we told you here and here and here and here and here and here. It's not like we've been holding information from you. We've been desperately trying to get this information to you. And slowly, like, wakes up and he comes to this realization. And when we looked at the clock, it was 10:10. It was 10:10 everywhere. The signs were everywhere that it was 10:10. So one for new beginning, and 0 kind of represents 0 point, you know, like God's source. And then 1 is new beginning, and it was new beginning, because the clock, all of the clocks read 10:10. And I said, you better wake up, because it's almost 11:11, and that's when we're all going to leave. And when I said that, all of the men left. And I also dropped. I had been carrying a massive burden. I'd been carrying on my right shoulder a humongous weight, responsibility. It was kind of like the masculine energy, and I'd been carrying an 8-year-old little black girl. I'd been carrying her too. And when I got to the front door of the delicatessen, I dumped them both down. Basically, the second wave, I'm leaving with the first wave. My work is done. All of my population, who has done so much fucking work and just taken a massive loss, we have nothing else. Where are you going now? We've basically lost everything. Hi, YouTube. So what that creates, it creates its own propulsion, and we really need to reframe it and see it that way. We need to see that as an asset, because it is. Does it also suck? Yeah. But if we look at the part that sucks, we're never going to get out. You have to reframe it and say, okay, I've got nothing material, but I've got a core of steel, though. I've got a vacancy. Nature abhors a vacuum. So think about why this could be its own propulsion. It really does. It is its own propulsion. I started to say, in the dream, when I dumped the load down, the delicatessen that was owned by men that was giving me nothing, not feeding anybody, I should also say there were people in the dream, and a lot of people were hungry, and you could only get fed if you had money. But the people who needed the food didn't have any money, and they were starving. So that's not going to be allowed to continue, is it? In the dream, as soon as I knocked the men out of the way, or woke them up, let's say that, because they just left. And the little black girl ran home to her mother, and all of a sudden, the shop, the delicatessen, was owned by a woman who had, and it was a gift and flower shop. Suddenly it turned from a delicatessen to a gift and flower shop, and it was so lush and so beautiful, and there was so much bounty there. And it was crowded, like there were baskets that were just overflowing with goods and jewelry and flowers, and there was fudge and pastry and blankets and like the most well provided. It was extremely well appointed, put it that way. It was just overflowing, and there were toys, luxurious toys for children. And when I walked through it, I suddenly recognized a whole bunch of stuff that came from me that I had made that disappeared from my kitchen, which is actually things that have happened to me. Like I used to have a chocolate company too, pallet to pallet. I used to be an artist too. My work was destroyed. It was stolen and destroyed by someone who just decided that they just didn't want me to have what I had made. They weren't into sharing. They were into destroying my my senior show from my bachelor's, getting my bachelor's degree, and my professional portfolios and the evidence and my murals that they threw out, rather than simply giving it to the person who made it. The door was locked and I couldn't get in. And even though they had a legal obligation to give it to me, they chose to throw it all in the dumpster. Hundreds of drawings from when I got my master's degree. We're going to throw it out just because we don't want you to have it, even though you made it and we did nothing. I don't believe in retribution, but also there's no point. Karma's coming. Karma will take care of that. That was a stupid move. At any rate, in the dream, the woman who owned the shop, I was walking around in the dream and I recognized like there was a cabinet that was full of fudge, and I was like, wait a minute, I just made that fudge and she's selling it. I made that. A whole bunch of this. I made all this stuff, and this is the stuff that disappeared from my kitchen. And the woman of the shop recognized me. She already knew who I was, and she said, she recognized it, and she said, you're right. Everything that was yours, you're getting back. There have been people who have manifested using my power. I was unable to receive because in the Joan of Arc template, I had to go down as a virgin who couldn't have money, sex, who couldn't receive anything, because it was part of one of the things we had to do in order to get the children out to make sure they remained unmolested. We had to get an energy in there that was so... we had to get an energy in that made it impossible. Absolutely impossible. You know, there's a two-way system. If you link energy streams with somebody, the energy is going to flow in two directions. So my children that were imprisoned, that were getting nothing, needed an energy to be transmitted to them that made it so that they could not be violated any further. But as a result, it also made it so that, you know, there's the virginity in the church, and women who aren't allowed to, who weren't allowed to have sex. Joan of Arc they were fanatic about Joan of Arc's virginity. And I was fanatic about my own virginity because it served a purpose. At any rate, it made it so that I've been poor my whole life, no matter how much work, overtime, no matter what I did, no matter how much more I worked than anybody else, my energy was always drained, and it was actually impossible for me to receive. It always went to somebody else constantly. Anybody I'm partnered to gets the benefit of all of the bounty, and I can only receive it if if it's offered through, you know, if it comes through them. But I haven't been able to actually bring it into myself because there has been this barrier. So in the dream that I had, And I know it was prophetic. I knew exactly what it meant when it was, when I had it. The woman knew who I was. She recognized that at least half of the stuff that she was selling in her shop was stuff that actually was mine. So she gave it to me. She helped me pack up, and we knew where I was going. I was going to go up the hill a little bit further, and I was going to go way up to the penthouse of the New York Academy of Art in my dream. It was the New York Academy of Art, my graduate school. And I was going to go all the way up to the penthouse and live there. But there was she said, it's too bad we don't have anybody here to give you a ride. You're going to, there's nobody to help you carry it. You're going to have to pick up all of this bounty, and you're going to have to make 2 trips. So I know what that means. It means that the other person is coming who's going to bring the other half. But we're going to bring it, it's coming in 2 pieces. There's a first wave and a second wave. It also has to do with twin flame union. There's half of the money is coming up with me, half of the bounty. And in my dream, we gave the 8-year-old black girl, we gave her a bunch of it to take home to her mother so that I didn't have to carry her anymore. She had enough that she could follow me. There was parent-child reunion is the point. And then I took my baskets, all of my stuff that was filled with all the stuff that I made, half of it, and I went up to the top of the penthouse where there was a space waiting for me. And then we were going to create something up there. And then if you want to know about the rest of the dream, you can go read the post. But I want to talk about shared victory. I started to talk about the vacuum that is actually its own propulsion system. When nature abhors a vacuum, right? So we're always working with nature's laws. It's our has been our goal to get away from the artificial system that can be tampered with and reinstate the natural system that is divinely, there's divine harmony in that system. So we're being upgraded in a real big way. The light's coming in, all of the colors are reconvening. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? But in order for that to happen, we need to reframe the whole victim mentality, the idea of having nothing. And it's true. Like, I know that in my background it looks really lush and there's like all these things here, but I got $4 in my bank account right now. I haven't actually checked it since last night when I asked for donations. There might be something else there, but the last time I checked it yesterday, there was only $4 and $3 in my savings account. And I've got 2, as of right now, my power is scheduled to be turned off. At DSS, they've said that I don't qualify for anything else. They're telling me that I'm living outside my means, but I pay $950 for a 1-bedroom apartment that I share with my daughter. I've been here for 6 years. I know what the energy is doing. And I know that I know what position I'm holding. And I'm basically the leader of this particular group, except there is no leader, but there is and there isn't. We're going back to equality. That being the entire freaking point. Nonetheless, there's certain energy that must come out and be redistributed. And since people gave me their power and I kind of pulled them to this degree, to this point that we have now, light codes are coming back through me, and as I speak, they're being redistributed to those who contributed. So it's not like me bestowing, it's you reclaiming. It's important to reframe it like that. And it's very important to recognize that when you have a one-person vacuum, so this is why we need to join up. This is why all of the poor people, all of those of us who have lost everything, who have lost their homes, who have lost their family, disconnected from their family members, they've lost their jobs, or, you know, to one degree or another, there has been a massive departure or disconnect. They've been disconnected from everybody else. So the reconnect, when those of us who are vacant, like we've got ourselves, right, but we've lost everything else. When we reconnect with one another, I love these two. I love it, and they love one another. I like that. When we reconnect, the way it's going to work is because everything is shared, right? So it's kind of like we're creating a massive cosmic vacuum. If you have an empty space and then you set up a current, and then the wall comes down, the wall from where all the money is, then the wall comes down, guess where it's all going to go? It's all going to go into the space. There's going to be a massive redistribution, but we have to be connected in order to, like we've all been saying, you know, when is the financial reset? When the hell's the financial? When are they going to give us our money? We're broke. And the answer is, as soon as we connect and demand it and call them out and say half of that is actually ours, we're showing up with nothing, but we're showing up. It's not nothing. You show up with yourself. And you can no longer be taken down because you are the light. What? There goes Carmen. She just jumped off the chair. And you're still here, aren't you? This is Tosh. It will come flooding back in, that which was ours to begin with. But the thing that we have to reach is the tipping point. And just like you're never going to wait for an external source to give you something because it doesn't serve them. They don't want to lose it. So don't ask for permission. Can I please have justice? Can I please have justice? I've tried that. It doesn't work. They won't give it to you. They don't actually want you to have it. They don't want to share half of what they have with you. You have to reach a point where you say, fuck you, I'm taking it. I'm taking it. Fuck you or not, I'm taking it. I'll take it, you know. I don't have to be mean to you to be kind to me. I can just say, half of this is mine, and I'm walking out with it now. Right? So we have, I read energy, I read objects, I read everything in situations, and I recognize what this means. So I don't exactly know where it's coming from, but I do know that it is now the end of the cycle where those of us on the first wave have done the hardest of the labor. And those who are on, and we're not uncompassionate, we have learned to navigate. We have learned to forge our own path when one isn't offered. So one of the things that happens in the new terrain, there is no path. This has never been happened ever before, ever. We're doing something that is absolutely unprecedented. So looking to an external source, the answer is not going to be given to you. You need to decide step by step by step. Every single step is a new choice point. Which side do you want? You have to cultivate the ability to discern for yourself which is true for you. I can tell you that if you want to go up, look for the light, go toward the light, go for truth. But you sometimes, has been so much deception, and it mimics the real one so carefully it mimics you. It's incredibly difficult to tell. But that's why you don't ask it. You can ask a teacher, an external guide, but you've got to, vibration does not lie. Anything outside of you, even if it's not lying, even if it's telling you its own truth, you don't always have to villainize other people for having different opinions either. They could be telling you the truth as they know it, but it might not be true for you. So what you need to do step by step, moment by moment, is learn to navigate by kind of sniffing around, feeling for your own truth. Where do I need to go? So that's a skill set, right? And that's also going to be the only way forward in creating something new. The new terrain, the new realm, the new realm that we're going in has no paths. It has no paths. We are the defining force. We're going to get there first and create the architecture for the prolific circulation of joy. So we're going to have to be, we've practiced for this shit. We've practiced. Even when we didn't want to practice for it, we were forced into a situation where we had to learn to use ourselves rather than an external source, because you ask for something and they're not giving it to you, no matter where you turn. It's like in Frozen. They're divided, and she knocks on the door and there's nothing. She knocks on the door and there's nothing. She knocks on the door and she doesn't get an answer. Keeps knocking on the door. They're not going to give it to you. That doesn't mean they're going to stay separate forever. The restriction, when you are scooped out, when you're a vessel and you've been gutted, absolutely scraped out, you've got nothing left. You are a sacred vacuum now. So that if those of us who have gone through this experience and we're now empty, we join together, it's very much like when you pull back an arrow. The further back you pull it, you're holding it, and you're thinking it can't go back any further. It can't go back any further. But you stretch it back, it's just taut, man. You can't stand the tension anymore. But the further back it goes, the emptier it gets. When it finally breaks, it's going to shoot forward that much farther. So there is actually, I'm not lying right now, there is actually divine retribution for the amount of time that we've had to wait. The financial reset was supposed to originally be scheduled. We were ready for it on 9/11. 9/11, 9 for completion, 11 for the 11 gateway. And they imprisoned us for further years. Obviously we didn't get the financial reset. We got the events of 9/11 at the Twin Towers. Because that was withheld from us, that was the original plan. Because it was withheld, it created from that point forward, we have as a collective been in this sacred, in a horrible space, but losing more and more. And it seems like darkness has been gaining. It just seems like darkness has been gaining, like they're invaded, and it seems like it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And of course it has. But there's a gift inherent in that degree of darkness, and you have to really reframe it in your head, because the way out is in the reframing. If you look at the darkness and you remember how your direction is determined. It's like you're driving your car, right? Your direction is determined by what you're pointed at. Your steering wheel is going to determine, your mind is going to determine where your momentum takes you. The the propulsion comes from your emotional level. So if you're pointed, if you're looking at a problem, you're saying, God damn, it is dark in here. We're losing everything. We're losing everything. And you can't take your mind off the fact that you're losing everything. And you feel very bad about it. It's going to take you further down into victimization. You're going to feel that way. It's a tough thing to get out of. And I do know, because when you lose your children, they're taking you to court for saying that your real name, and you're telling the truth, but they're still taking you to court and they're not giving you anything that you were promised. Of course, it's easy to feel and it's also appropriate to feel all of the anger. This is a great collective purge process that precedes the reinstatement. Because the emptying must come first. It's part of getting everybody out. The first stage is going further into duality. So you go further into the darkness and you lose everything. And then you have to reframe it from a place of victimization. You have to turn the wheel and point it to where you recognize that as being the same fucking thing is the advantage as well. You've got to reframe it in your head. And this is the place where the army of quote unquote victims actually comes together and gets themselves out of prison. The tortured children, the ones who have been imprisoned by the system that has no intention of ever letting us go. Must they? Yeah, they must. They already know they've lost. They're just pissed and cranky. And they're doing whatever they can do. Death rows do that. You have to know that about death rows. There's a certain, the greatest resistance comes right before you die, often, unless you're really eager and keen on it. But it's like the compression zone. You reach this point of tension where there's usually a kind of a death row, But you'd have to recognize the way, okay, I'm not explaining this well, just a second. It's important to turn the wheel after the purge, after you've been gutted, you've released all this crap. It's important to turn the wheel back around to see what you believed, this is important, what you believed to be your worst characteristic or your biggest deficit. The fact that you're broke, nobody wants you because you're broke, you have nothing to offer. You're not well appointed. You can't give me anything. It's important to turn that around and view that exact thing as the actual thing that's going to get you out. The actual gift is something that you've had, but you were viewing it as a deficit. That's not true. Also, it's the thing that you can't get rid of. It's the thing that keeps slapping you in the face, man. You're never going to get out until you deal with it. That is also the gift. When we deal with it, this is a thing that's going to send us flying forward. This is where the tension, when you try to hold something at bay and you're like, oh God, please, please don't make me deal with that. For me, it was embracing the Joan of Arc identity. I didn't want to do it. I never, ever wanted to talk about it ever again. I felt such intense anguish. I felt the anguish of my population, the tortured children. Nobody wants to hear from you. You're garbage. Disposable. Sacrificed, chosen as the one specifically to be sacrificed. I never understood that. I never understood why. It's like I was selected, like the chosen one. It was supposed to be some kind of freaking gift. I didn't view it that way at all. Like, why is this my job? I'm sitting in a field one day and you tell me I have to go see the king and lead armies, and all I want to do is be a child in a field. You know, I want to weave with my mother. I was happy. And they said, no, you're going to go do this. And there's no getting away from it. You try to avoid it and avoid it and avoid it, and there's no getting away. There's not a way to get away from it. It's like a cosmic water slide. You're on this chute, and you never really wanted to get on it to begin with, but once you're committed, it's like you have to deal with it. There's nothing else to do. You're going to do it one way or another. So you better do it. If you're going to do it, go all in and get it done. And that's very much the same thing that happened in this lifetime too. In this lifetime, I shot out of my body in 2013. I couldn't get back in, but they did tell me, this is what you're doing. Like I even though I wasn't happy in my marriage, I was happy in my general life. I had children and a house, and I had all my animals and in my studio in the house. And I knew that leaving was coming, but my guides came in one day and they're like, this is what you're doing now. There's a part of ascension where in order to ascend, you have to deal with your own, you have to integrate all of the parts of you that you despise, the parts of you that you never wanted to see ever again, all of them. And for me, it was this one big ass fucker. Like, man, there is more conflict. I really never want to talk about this ever again. And they said the only way you can heal it is to revisit all of these circumstances and have it come out right. You need to correct it. You need to lead an army. And they said you have to lead an army. Once again, you're going to lead an army of children. That was what they said. They said, once again, you're going to lead an army of children. And I burst out crying and I said, that's the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. Who the fuck wants an army of children? I don't want an army of children. I know that story. It's horrible. And I know that it's, yes, children of light, and the new children are coming in, the star children, the rainbow children, the indigo children, the crystal children. And they are my army, and I do love them. But it wasn't a job that I really wanted. Nonetheless, it is a joyful time when we go there. All of the pain and anguish is in this realm. In 5, it's going to be a time for the reinstatement of the way we always knew it was supposed to be to begin with. My guides told me in 2013 when I was trying to buy Anna Divine School, they said, all you have to do, because I was very worried. Everybody was coming at me with like, you need the building permits, and you need to have the curriculum, you have to have the structure, and you have to have the business plan. And I was thinking, what my guidance was telling me, this is not the way to go. It's, in fact, not only is it not the way to go, it's going to be impossible to work it that way. You keep trying to, and it really wasn't me, but everybody kept saying, all of these voices around kept saying, I don't mean my voices, I mean the actual people I was working with at the time, kept saying, you have to go, no bank is going to work with you unless you have a business plan. And we got private funding for a while. And that was on board, except this person still wouldn't give us the money unless we did it the traditional way. And so we found another private benefactor. And once again, they wouldn't give us the money unless we did it a certain way. But that way wasn't viable. It was backwards. It was all backwards. Schools like that already exist. So why bother creating it if this is something, needs to be something totally new. And my guides had said, if you create this thing, if you make a location, a school for new children, all you have to do is give basically, basically give yourself everything that you know you needed and you never got. And if you do that, not only, it's not like nobody's going to want it. You're going to be so inundated with people who are saying, thank God this thing has finally arrived, because none of us could stand the old system anymore. And that is what's coming. I don't know where it's going to be. I still, honestly, if I'm honest, I really would still rather have the Anodyne location, just because what if it's symbolic of, has incredibly deep significance for me. But if we don't get that, then we will take the rest of the planet, and they'll be so uncomfortable, they'll eventually give us that spot too. We already rerouted a lot of the ley lines through other properties that made it viable. We recreated the system. This is kind of off topic, but I've been working with teams and teams and teams and teams and teams of people over the years to change the energy on that portal so that it wasn't nourishing the dark agenda. We we sealed off a lot of the feeding structures. We made it a contained field so that at least it's only there. We drained it to completion, but then we realized that every time we drained it, it was really kind of amazing. I've never met another location quite like this, where no matter how much you drained, it just kept coming back, kept filling up. Because that circulation system was still there. So we had to go about it a different way in order to prevent them from perpetually feeding things through that spot where it multiplies. We sealed it off. That was our tactic. At any rate. And then we took the light and we rerouted it through a different path. Nonetheless, if I had my druthers, I would still choose that location to start from. But at this point, any location would be better. And if they're not going to give it to us, then we're leaving. Where was I going with this? So it's important to reframe our assets. When you look at something that is just stark naked and not in good condition at that, you've had the crap beaten out of you, and now you're barefoot, you lost your teeth. That's another thing I lost too. When I lost my health, I was dying I was given 4 months to live at one point, and I was catastrophically ill for about 16 years. And the instant that Riften became my home, even though I was in, I got married, and 2 weeks later, I went to graduate school. And but we moved. The first year of graduate school was still fairly, I was still fairly healthy. The second year of graduate school, I moved during that summer, and Riften became my home. And as soon as that became my residence, and I was in graduate school, I was not aware of it at this time, but my energy started running so fast, there was like a completed circuit. It was the next part of the chapter of draining this Joan of Arc energy stream, and I burned out. I got terribly ill at the very end of my second year of graduate school, to the point of collapse. And I had 3 majors, and I was commuting every day, and I was, oh no, I guess at that point I was living there. At any rate, as soon as Riften became my home, all of my energy just went totally haywire, and my organs were shutting down. I was incredibly ill. Where was I going with this? Oh, and I was sick for a really, really long time. I lost all of my 30s. I was basically in bed, did very little. I did have children in my 30s, but it depleted my physical condition. And where was I going with this? I forgot. I might just need to put this information down. Where was I going with this? Yeah, so at any rate, I forget. I was in the middle of telling you something else. Shared victory, hang on a second. I did write it down. Oh, hang on a second. Public disclosure versus private. Oh, so there's been intercepted communication. I know I'm taking a little bit of a veer right now. There has been intercepted communication. I found out last night. I knew that there was, but I wasn't entirely sure how it would. I'm still not entirely sure who was intercepting it, but I know that it has been intercepted, badly intercepted, and that was interrupting my speech. For a long time, my guides told me in 2013 that I was going to write a book, and it was going to be very famous. The only person I shouldn't say the only person. I was texting Josh about it a lot. But again, my guide said the only thing I had to do was begin the energy flow because it was so stagnant. I had to put this information out. And I know that I probably looked like a stalker, but it really wasn't about delivering the information because so much of it was jumbled and interfered with anyway. It was really just about the process of like a volcanic eruption where you have a location where there's so much toxic, hostile energy in the earth that it just needs to get out. So you're not going to stop and analyze all of the information in like a volcanic eruption or like earth vomit. That's basically what it was. The energy was so incredibly dark and churning, and it was all so painful. And all we had to do was get that to come out in kind of, it was the beginning part of disclosure, right? So disclosure was disjointed, and the first part of disclosure is a purge, but it didn't make a lot of sense. It was kind of undecipherable. And I ran a lot of that through me. And I also couldn't, two things happened. I was afraid to put it out because I didn't understand it. And I also didn't want anybody to identify me as Joan of Arc. I had another dream where I was hiding in a corner in the pitch black with a ladder. And there was a 2-story house, and there were glass patio doors. And I was really afraid to come out of that corner with my ladder because there were people outside who were going to see that I had a ladder, and they were going to know that I could get up to the top floor very easily. I knew how to get up. And I was afraid they were going to pounce on me, mob me. I was afraid I was going to get totally mobbed and overwhelmed by people as soon as they knew that I had the way out, because they were all getting panicked. And it was a dream with Josh and Carmen in it. And it was all about how do we get her to come out of the darkness when she just wants to stay in there and never, ever, 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 ever come out. I was so traumatized, and I just didn't want them to, I just didn't want them to know that I had a way up, because I was afraid it was just gonna destroy me. They were gonna harm me and mob me, and they made me go. They lured me. Actually, it was Carmen and Josh. Josh didn't do anything. He held still. But in my dream, they lured me into the kitchen. And finally, I went to the center, and I was like, fine, I'll take a little piece of cake. And they told me that the rest of it was upstairs, and then they took away the stairway. Carmen took away the stairway on the inside, so that if I wanted to go upstairs, I would be forced to take my ladder and go outside and crawl in through the window where it was observed. by other people, and then they would know. So it's a tricky thing because I didn't want disclosure. It's kind of like the person in they steered me to do this. I didn't want to come out in public at all. I never wanted to tell anybody. I wanted to retreat and go away and never talk about it ever again. But they, it was symbolic for the way that this person who they act as your opposition, but they're also getting you to develop yourself and do your own, strengthen your own qualities. I was never supposed to stay in a tiny little pitch black corner with all of the knowledge that I have. I was just too scared to come out with it for fear of retribution. So, so I've come out with my ladder, and we've talked about if you've read my post, we've talked about the ladder of ascension and how it's an appropriate analogy because unlike a stairway where everything is solid, a ladder is a combination of spaces and solidity, so that both sides have a way to move forward, because those of us coming from space need more, our way forward is to take the path of least resistance and flow. We require a certain degree of freedom. And those who prefer structure and solidity require structure and solidity. So it's a perfect marriage of these two oppositional forces. That's what the ladder of ascension is. And that's what we're trying to do with the entire Earth. The Earth is going up, not just in light bodies. So the way it's different, and this is part of our reward, right? So this is so interesting. Other planets ascend all the time, but the normal way that they do it, the standard way that planets ascend, is they go up into light body, and then you don't have the same kind of physical structure at all. So this time, because of the unique qualities, because we've been withheld for so long, so many things were weird about Earth. The whole system, like the fact that it's this petri dish of all of these different, just the multitude, the sheer variety of species that are on this planet. It's very different from a lot of planets which are much more kind of localized. Like you've got the Pleiadians and they live here, and you've got the Arcturians and they live there, and you don't have those sheer multiplicity of the sheer variety as has happened on this planet. And then combine that with the fact that that not only is it unique in that way, but we also were a prison planet, right? A lot of us didn't have our material development was stunted and deliberately withheld on this planet. So that's one of the reasons. It's as we go up, we're getting two things simultaneously. We're getting the ascension. We're getting the rest of our full embodiment of all of our aspects, right? But we're also getting an upgrade because we were withheld for so long, because our material was withheld from us. We were supposed to get the financial reset on 9/11, and instead we were further pulled back, and we had to start back again. And because of that, we're getting an additional upgrade. It's kind of like never before has the arrow been pulled back quite this far for an entire freaking planet. It hasn't, with the amount of people, with the amount of beings on it. Has been a different kind of imprisonment with different qualities. So in order to rebalance that, when we shoot forward, we're going to get an extra large jackpot. And it's not coming just to each one of us, although it is coming to each one of us. It's also coming to the planet in entirety. And because the one of the ways that we devised in order to liberate it had qualities that were unique. I almost said so unique, but there is something is either unique or it's not. This is unique. Nothing else exists in this pattern ever. The same way Joan of Arc, the being, was something that, like, we've never seen this before. You don't fit into any box. That established the new template for our planet. This planet is going, I almost said it's going global. It is going global. It is a globe, but it's an upgrade, and it's going to be unique and rainbow and have everybody in it. But we're going in 3 waves. So the entire point that I started to say was that our arrow has been pulled back extremely far for this reason. So the first wave of volunteers, the ones who have been absolutely scraped down to the point where we're empty. Running on fumes was at least running on fumes. We don't have any fumes left, dude. This is ended as of today. And I don't exactly know how it's going to play out. I have no idea. But I do know that in joining together, there's something about this particular transmission which is going to afford us a way forward, because we have connected with one another enough. And we're strengthened with the new frequencies enough so that as soon as the barrier is lifted, we're shooting forward, up. We're shooting up and forward. And there is financial gain that is going to come with now that we have reestablished our connection with one another. We've created a sacred vacuum. It is a sacred vacuum. We're all recognizing equally, we identify the fact that what we believed to be a deficit is actually our way forward. It provides us an avenue. It provides us our space to go forward. This is very much mass exodus. It's the parting of the Red Sea. It's the birth of the Hebrews who are leaving slavery. It's exodus. It's the collective Christ body. We are the collected body of Christ. And we're going through the Red Sea. The collected body of Christ has been purified. Purified meaning we have lost absolutely everything that we didn't need. And there is now space for light that is unprecedented, at an unprecedented level of space for light. And the light is us. The light isn't coming from an external source. We are revealed. That's what this is today. It's the revelation of us as a collective. And we are the light army, except it's not really even an army, because it's only an army when you're in duality and you're fighting something. You're not fighting anything. In the higher levels, it becomes very much a light orchestra. And so now we just get to play. That's true. We're just going to play. We're going to develop orchestrations, multidimensional orchestrations in light. And we're going first. The twin dynamic is important. I wasn't entirely sure. I'm still not sure. I would encourage you all to go watch. If you've seen Frozen, good. Well, go watch Frozen. If you've seen Frozen already, go on Amazon and check out the movie Frozen Fever. It's if you watch it through the eyes of symbolism, you'll see it. You'll see it. Go watch for the part where, well, I'll give it away, but go watch it through the eyes of symbolism. And it's Anna's birthday. And it's about the, and it's also where Elsa gets a fever and she has to rest. So this is the important part. This is the absolute end of the Joan of Arc dynamic that kept us in a place of lack, kept us in a place of victimization where we really didn't get anything, ever. In Frozen Fever, Elsa gives Anna a birthday party. You should go watch the movie. It's short. When Anna and Kristoff meet in the courtroom, that's a surprise in the courtyard. There's a surprise, but it's a 3-tiered explosion in an arc. And it's when they make eye contact. And I'm not sure, I've been wondering for a while, and also watch what happens with Olaf. Just watch it through the eyes of symbolism. Watch it a couple of times as they follow the red thread and she gets pieces, she gets mini gifts the entire time. And meanwhile, Elsa is going down in power. Like she has to go to bed. She's being put to rest, right? That whole dynamic that said this is held by one person who has to do all of the work but may receive nothing. Has all of this power, is holding all of this power, but gradually, like every time she sneezes, she produces a multitude of babies, like mini light workers. Go watch the movie Frozen Fever on Amazon. It's amazing. If you watch it through the eyes of symbolism, you'll see that. And meanwhile, Kristoff is protecting a 3-tiered cake. He's protecting the entire thing. Kristoff is not just a name Kristoff. It's Christ off. The place, where we had all given Christ our power. It's Jesus Christ. And we're all giving this one being our power. But the collective Christ comes when we take back our power. The movies were designed to give the power of Christ back to the people, to resurrect the population. It was designed always to do that. Is there a dark side? Yes. Many of the dark side will be lifted as well. Not all of them. If you really prefer that, if you're absolutely determined, like, no, I want the dark side and that's me, you are welcome to go. You won't be coming with us. But a lot of the dark ones that are still trapped in darkness, you're only going to remain trapped in darkness if you choose. So everyone's going to receive liberation who wants to come and who does the work, their own work. But that doesn't mean it's going to be comfortable. A lot of sleepers have lived in a tremendous amount of comfort that came from the efforts of the rest of us who received nothing. So that's going to even out now. Yeah, Kristoff. It's an important vibrational delivery. And I'm doing a lot of it, but the movies are doing a lot of it too. And I'm not sure exactly how this is going to happen. I imagine it's just, they're going to plop it in my lap, I think. I know that I had to come out with this information publicly, and I know that I'm going to be going to work on, I'm being reassigned. They've already told me, I don't exactly know. Oh, actually, I do. I don't know exactly where I'm going to be, but I do know that as soon as I leave this apartment, they're moving me to another location where I'm going to be somehow teaching the science of creation. I had thought it was going to be an art school. You know, my grandfather, Bern Hogarth, that's his name, he founded SVA, School of Visual Arts in New York City. Took him 6 years to do it too. And at some point, so he was part of the Joan identity too. He brought in the very dominant masculine warrior energy. His energy came into mine when it was time for battle because I was a kid. I had the divine child purity frequency, and that I could open to receive from the top. I couldn't receive anything from the bottom, but I could receive everything from the top. So I was very absorbent in the Joan of Arc lifetime to influences that would come from the top down. So my grandfather in this lifetime was Bern Hogarth, and he participated in the David lifetime too. When it was time for battle, his energy came in and it was extremely competitive, very egotistical, very masculine. When that energy was required, we brought that in and he kind of took over that persona. But in bringing it back, in his lifetime, he struggled with the same legal battles too. His population was this is a bit of disclosure, his population that he was responsible for were the warriors. And that's why his School of Visual Arts, was largely funded before he was blacklisted and thrown out of his own school. All sorts of shit happened. Before that happened, Kyle Ryan will tell you, I'm really hoping Kyle Ryan is going to come out with his book. Very much hoping that Kyle Ryan is going to come out with his book. It's important. I'm going to send this to Kyle Ryan, who doesn't know anything about Joan of Arc, and I don't think that he believes me. But I think it would be nice if his book came out. He's been doing a biography of Bern Hogarth for a real long time. The reason Bern Hogarth had to come down and notice the name, I'm sure you noticed the name. His name was Bern. Not Bernard, Bern, B-U-R-N-E. Yeah. He drew Tarzan. And that is also significant if you pay attention to any of the Disney theories that that Anna and Elsa's parents were actually Tarzan's parents. And I will tell you that, yes, they are in the same energy stream. If you snoop around on YouTube, you can find certain theory videos, but that is actually true. There's a whole bunch of lineage, cosmic lineage, that is interconnected, and we've been disclosing all along the Tarzan movies, and then also it's all the movies are intertwined for a reason. Basically, whatever, if you were part of the Joan of Arc structure, this structure, and whatever you put your energy into, whatever part you played, whether you were part of the darkness, whether you played the role of an oppressor, whether you played the role of the English, whether you were in the church, whether you were participated as one of the members of the army, or whether you participated as one of the children who is still imprisoned and being sexually molested, everything that you put in, this entire structure is being dismantled, and all of the energetic contributions, put it that way, whatever energetic contribution you put in is now yours to bring back. That's why I had 6 years of, well, more than that, fuck, it's my whole life. I've been working on the redress, I've been working on fixing that my entire life. But I only found out about it in 2013. But if you added to that, if you were part of the army, if you were part of the English army, if you were part of the French army, if you were part of the church, if you were part of the oppressed that didn't fight, but you were there and you wished for freedom, whatever portion you put in, any energetic contribution, that's what's coming back to you one way or another. So if you fought for freedom, and God knows we didn't get it, we came this close at Paris. And we were promised victory, and we weren't given victory because the king, King Charles, sabotaged his own army. He did. He sabotaged his own army. Not only did he not show up for the battle at Paris, he stayed in the next town. Couldn't even come to watch us. But we also built bridges. We were up there just trying to free those people. And he himself sabotaged his own army because he didn't want to take responsibility for feeding his own people. He preferred to blame it on the English. What could I do? They captured her. What could I do? They captured the people. Well, in truth, he just really didn't want to be responsible for his own population. He knew if he continued to fight, that he would have to pay the French army, and he didn't want to. He knew that if the people were freed by the French army, they would all want to be fed, and he didn't want to pay for that either. You think that's without karmic consequences, buddy? Nope. It wasn't just me who got robbed. It wasn't just me who did all the work. It was all of us with a combined intent to get free, who did the work, who did the work, who did the work. And one other person sabotaged it and took the reward, who was never after equality. I want to say one other thing about that lifetime. I want to draw everyone's attention to the famous scene that actually did happen. It took me several years after my guides told me to go speak to the king and deliver him the crown, make sure he got it. They told me I was going to lead an army. And I had to sneak out of the house in the middle of the night. I had to leave my family. I finally went to another town, and I had to stay in another town. I tended bar for a while, waiting for somebody to, nobody believed me, but matters were so grave. They're like, what else? What do we have to lose? You may as well let her go. You know, if nobody believes her, she'll just go home. But that famous scene of Joan of Arc where she goes into the court and everybody's standing around in their finery, and she shows up in a, scrappy dress, but showed up honest. Showed up honest with something to offer, having already done all of this work. And the first interaction that the king offers, the prince, he's not a king yet. He'll never be a king. I don't care what fucking crown you put on his head. A traitor's a traitor. He turned himself into a traitor. His first interaction with me was a lie. And I admit, even though I saw, and if you go back to the scene, I said that I wanted to see the king, that I had a message. I was here to give him victory if he would let me have an army. And there was a lot of mistrust. But I knew what he had said to God. I knew what he prayed in private. And when I went to court, they decided to test me. They decided to test me to see if I really was who I said I was. And they tried to trick me by giving me, and by telling me, by lying and telling me that here's the king, here he is. And it wasn't the king, it was the king, the prince, the Dauphin. It wasn't him. It was not the person I was looking for. And I knew it wasn't him because the vibration was wrong. There's light language. I got flashes of light that meant certain things. I could read the light. I could read objects. Sometimes certain qualities of light will mean, pay attention to this. You're going to need to pay attention to this object. The information, what it means is going to come to you later, but just make a note of it. Our first interaction the Dauphin and me, was where I came having worked a really long time to even get an audience. And I showed up honest, and he showed up in disguise, gave me someone false to see if I could tell the difference. And I did. And that was a famous scene. I knew it wasn't him. Incidentally, in this lifetime, Michael Withall was the Dauphin. He still lives in Riften. When I first met Michael Withall, I walked into a room in Boughton Hall, and it was a friend's room, and everybody was sitting around, and I was looking for somebody else. In the talk about reaching 0 point, what I have come to discover is that there has been a process of reliving all of the circumstances in that life. I have basically relived everything and gone back and done the opposite thing in order to reach 0 point. So our first meeting in the Joan lifetime was one of deception, where I was looking for somebody and was given somebody else and knew that wasn't the person. I was looking for someone else, and I was able to recognize him in that life, and that's why they gave me the army. But he also, by the way, in that lifetime, he said, yes, you can have an army, and then he sent me away to wait for the army to arrive. And me and 6 men, and we waited 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And he wasn't going to bother sending the army. He said he would, and we waited 2 weeks, and he never showed up with the army. He never showed up at all. But we finally had to send one of the men back to say, where the fuck's the army? She said she was going to lead the army, and you're going to get a victory if you show up with the army. But if you show up with nothing, she's not going to do it single-handedly. So we got our army, and we did eventually get our victory. Did it change his basic character? No. His basic character is still unchanged. We are ourselves through and through. And as we go through our lives, we create ourselves. So if you double down on the lying, you basically make yourself a bigger, fatter liar. And if you don't like it, stop doing it. You might call me mean, but I'm honest. When I first met him in this lifetime, I walked into a room where he was sitting on the floor, and I looked all around, and I didn't see the person I was looking for. I was looking for someone else. And I turned, without saying a word, I turned on my heel and I walked out of the room. And Michael turned to his then girlfriend and he said, who was that freak? And that was our first meeting in this lifetime. Yes. Did we eventually get married? Yep. But it was, and he's a wildly fun person. Can be when he's charming. He can be very, very charming. But he's very easily taken over by influences that come to him from the outside. It's not that he himself is a bad person, but he has been a very scared person through history. And rather than taking responsibility, he will divert it or blame somebody else. There's a tremendous amount of misdirection in that entire energy stream throughout that entire story. A great deal of it. And he sabotaged his own army. He sent people to burn the bridge that we spent a great deal of time building by hand out of branches. At any rate, this is the time when we're leaving, and we've had it. We've really had it with the corruption. There was an entire armies that worked to liberate the people, And there was thousands and thousands and thousands of people who were inside a walled city with the rescuers right there. The number of people who showed up with a combined intent to be liberated and liberate others. There was a powerful force of combined love, combined intent, and we have been held back for too long. And you can starve us all you want. We're only going to turn it into an advantage. And that starts today. I realized after a while that the person who was restricting my speech worst was actually me, because I was trying to protect people. Because believe it or not, I love Michael Whittle. I don't want, and the Dauphin. I went to my grave defending him, defending him, defending him, defending him. He's a good Christian. He's a good Christian. He's a good Christian. He's not. But it's okay. Christianity's overrated. It's actually more important to follow your own path. It's more important to follow your own path, but you can't sabotage other people and prevent them, suppress them, suppress them, suppress them. That's the part that you can't do. And that's exactly what you did. So that's what ends. What are you going to do, Sumi? Take my kids? You already did. I got nothing else to lose and everything at stake. So it's not a call to arms. I actually would like peace, but I'm tired of protecting others who devalue me so much. And that's been the case with my entire populace. It's my entire populace that were robbed of what they deserved and fought for and waited for. The waiting is fucking over. All of my population, we've served our time. We've paid any karmic debt. And now we're leaving. And it's not a threat of any kind. And I don't believe in retribution, but I do believe in full disclosure. And it's my story too. I was taken to court in this lifetime and they called me crazy, and they tried to deny me visitation even with my children because I claimed to be Joan of Arc. I claimed that I had been Joan of Arc. And all I did was tell the truth. But, I didn't even get to go on the stand. I settled. I shouldn't have settled, but I was traumatized really badly. And I didn't want to go back and with my memories. I didn't want to be put back on trial. And they knew that. It's kind of like, I can turn it around out of victimization and say, okay, this was something that needed to be purged. And it did. But now that that's purged, I never actually got to speak. My lawyer thought it was best if I didn't go on the stand, lest I say something crazy that the judge wouldn't understand. If they said, when they put me under psychological evaluation, do you believe you were Joan of Arc? And I said, yes. And I also said, I also believe that God talks to me. And I also believe that when I hear music, there are signs in it. And I believe that the trees are speaking to me, and I hear music and I get messages. But you know what? I'm not alone either. Somebody made that rule that was abnormal. And it's only abnormal to those of you who cannot do it. So perhaps there's some jealousy, but you could put that down and simply learn how to do it if you choose, or you could stay imprisoned. You have to look at the intention. The intention was actually peaceful. The intention was loving. And it was offered to all parties, not just mine. It was offered to all of my children. And if you choose to leave and shut down, you're welcome to do that. But you need to choose your company carefully. The measurement, interestingly enough, the measurement, it's not a judgment of any kind. It is not a judgment. There's no external source that says you can ascend and you can't. What it is the amount of fear that you're carrying. The amount of fear, the amount of negativity, the intention. Prince Hans in Frozen, that story is true, man. That story is true. It's the Joan of Arc story. Also, here's something interesting. The way that energies, forces combine to produce a form. And this is so fascinating. You know how something in spiritual growth, you learn that that you have to, you develop the ability to hold opposing viewpoints simultaneously and understand both of them. It's an expansion. You recognize the truth of another being's reality. You recognize that that's true. So this is very interesting. What I love about this is that it doesn't make anybody wrong. The idea that Walt Disney was frozen? His body was not cryogenically frozen, but was Walt Disney frozen? Yes, because Walt Disney, his body, he was in the spiritual lineage of the Joan of Arc, very much in the Joan of Arc spiritual lineage, and Frozen is the Joan of Arc story. Great deal. Actually, all of it. If you follow Disney from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, it's like the little men who are looking for all their treasure underground. And she's singing "Someday My Prince Will Come," and trapped by the Wicked Queen. If you start there, because you have to meet your population where they are. We were trying to get the population from being insipid and weak and doing nothing to being feminine warrior leaders. And we had to start there. Princess trapped in a tower. But if you follow that through Frozen, in the third dimension, Walt Disney's body was not frozen, but was Walt Disney's energy that is frozen. It's true and it's not true. It doesn't make anybody wrong. It's both things. I love that part. Yes, I do. So I know Frozen 2 is coming out. I'm very eager to see that. I saw the preview. Is there anything else that I needed to talk about today? Today is a very important turning point. I will tell you that I don't know how many more live streams I will do. I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen because, to be honest, my bank account has been so low that I've been denied for everything, and so here's the thing. I have 2 electric bills. One of them they're both final termination notices. I had one bill on a payment plan that I couldn't keep up with, and they're terminating that. And then, and that one's for like $1,200. And then I have another one for like $2,000, and I can't pay that one either. And so they've given me a final termination notice, but I've got 2 notices that say my power is being turned off. So if for some reason I vanish and I'm not on Facebook anymore, I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen, but I do know that paying the electric bill is also, not only do I not have any money to do it myself, but it's also robbery because energy is actually free. Free energy was ours, has been given to us many times, it has been suppressed. So even if they were to if we take our power back, even if we were just to get money that we have already paid, that was already ours. It's like if you're paying for something that's free, you shouldn't have to pay for something that is already yours for free. And every time you do that, if they extract that from you, it's robbery. And they need to give back to us what was actually ours. Also, one interesting thing is that I used to have a mechanical horse that my father gave me, and my daughter Calico and I was keeping it as a surprise for her, and we worked on it. I didn't want to restore it. I wanted to make it into something completely different. And Calico and I were, I stripped it down for a long time. It was a champion horse, an original. It was an original champion horse. You know, the kind that like coin operated, and you put the money in, and it goes. And I had bought this ride-on toy for it was actually given to me from my father, and it was original. It was very heavy, but it was all crusted, and there was a tremendous amount of cleanup that was involved. And I hid it behind a dumpster for a while because I wanted to do it and surprise my kids with it. And it took me so long, so labor intensive to get all of the layers of paint off this thing. And I sanded it, and I was re-sculpting the fiberglass. And then one day Calico came running around the corner, and she saw me behind the dumpster with this thing, and she got all excited. She was like, "What's that?" And so I decided she was going to work on it with me. So we left it there, and we painted it, and then what we were doing was covering it with pennies. We had taken up a collection of pennies, and it was going to be a commentary on the financial system, or like you were going to wind up with a copper-colored or copper horse. And Calico and I were gluing pennies on this. Anyway, and it was also meant to be like an art piece where it was a commentary on the financial system, because it didn't actually accept coins. The coin mechanism was broken, so you had to plug it in, and then it just kept running and running and running and running. And you had to unplug it in order to even get it to stop, which is a metaphor for the entire Joan of Arc lifetime. I didn't know that at the time, but Calico and I were working, my daughter Calico, we were working on this thing together. And Michael knew that and gave it to somebody. Just gave it away. And this person, I called them, and they said, yeah, they admitted that they had gotten it, but they will only sell it back to me for $3,000. That's not cool. You betrayed not just me, but your child as well. That was our joint project that we were working on. And that was every force evolves a form. And you change the energy, you have to change the energy to get this pattern to stop. And in order to get the pattern to stop, you have to actually take a look at what it actually is. It's not going to go away if you ignore it. It's going to perpetuate until you address it. That's exactly what it will do. And if you don't like it, have a decent, honest conversation and make reparations. I shouldn't have to pay $3,000 to get a single piece of my own work back. It was pure malice. And it's a symbol, it's symbolic of what these energies will just keep happening. They're going to keep making people do the work in good faith and then taking back what they made. So this pattern needs to end. Karma is real. And we're tired of putting up with it. A large group of people. I shouldn't have to starve when I work as hard as I do, and nor should my populace. Okay. So there's a shared victory coming. There's a shared victory to all of us who put our work in and didn't get anything back. I want to say something dramatic like it's payday, and it basically is. I don't know where the money's coming from, but I do know that I have been told to expect that which was due us is coming back to the collective, because we joined together and created a large enough vacuum that it creates a force that brings it back to us. It's basically like yanking your power back, taking it back by force, because nobody's going to give it to you unless you do. So public disclosure, snake came off, but I found the lizard. Everything at stake, nothing left to lose, shared victory, public disclosure, what is a template, who's this coming from? Okay, I love you. I think that's the transmission for today, and stay tuned. I'm not sure if my power is going to be cut off or if I'm going to disappear. I very much hope that I'm going to move, though, and I'm hoping I'm going to take as I can't stay here any longer. This is a prison. I love you all very much.